Okay, so we were working on the number system and binary numbers. Now, the number systems is like something very, very important in computer history. Now, I don't need to tell any one of you is that each button or each thing is going to be taken action by the computer in 0 and 1 only. That means the binary numbers. The computer understands the binary language. The computer doesn't understand about the alphabet A, B, C, or whatever the symbol you are typing or inputting inside the computer. It's just understanding the 0 and 1 language. For each number, we are having some assigns of the number. That means for 1, we are having the number assigned 0101. For number 2, we are having 1010, such type of combinations. Okay. So for that, I think so that we are having the ASCII table. I think so that you guys know about the ASCII conversion chart. Now, this is known to be the basic chart, and you don't need to do a rectification actually. Like we are having 00. So for a 0 number, we are having octal 3 zeros, hexadecimal 00, and ASCII, that is annual. No, the ASCII is totally different. You don't need to murmur this. So there is actually a mathematics behind all these things. So we would be working on that as well. Okay, so you can see that we are having for 1000 blah 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 2 and this. What can be the number for the 16? What can be the binary number of the 16? Anyone? What can be the binary number of 16? Jaya, if you are in the class, then you can let me know. Or anyone can let me know. What can be the binary number of 16? As usual, everything depends on the very...
Sir, 00000110.
ASCII से देखा है क्या? Okay. Now we are having the logical statement and reasoning. Now what happens in the computational programming is like something, or computational thinking is that people don't have the logic sense, right? They are not having the logic senses at all. They are just having, they want to become as an Nitish. You can simply okay. They are basically having the mind structure to become as an IT engineer, or that's it. But for taking the IT companies such like Google or Cisco, in which I'm also basically applying to work in Google or Cisco. After like 6 months, I'm going to being applying in the Cisco Google company. So these companies particularly needs the persons who are having the logical mindset. That means they are having some logical thinking, reasoning. Now, as usual, what do you mean by that? This is an example or blah, blah, blah. Logical thinking actually means that how can you prove any statement? In computer, if you are having, suppose if we take x is smaller than 5, let's suppose in a mathematical calculation that x is smaller than 5. And then in the next statement, we are having that y is smaller than 5. Now, which statement is true? And if we are saying x equal to y, how can you prove that? In a mathematical solution, in a graphical manner. If you remember the graph, then that's good. Otherwise, you can't. Many of you say that if x is equal to 5, or sorry, if x is smaller than 5, y is smaller than 5, x equal to y. How? Now, many of you would be saying, suppose if we take x equal to 4 and 4 is smaller than 5 and y is equal to 4, which is of course smaller than 5. So x equal to y. Now, this is not an answer. You are just assuming on something. The computer doesn't assume, or if any of the program or the Python coding you basically makes, the computer doesn't recognize it. It just only works on the 0 and 1. And that's it. The Python coding itself works on the 0 and 1. The Python coding is not like something if you write any code and it is going to work or execute that. No, it is also working on 0 and 1 only. So the very नीतीश, आपकी आईडी प्रूफ हमें अभी तक मिली नहीं है, और अगर क्लास में हो तो थोड़ा सा सही से रहो, ठीक है? आईडी प्रूफ वगैरह अभी कुछ मिला नहीं है ना, आपकी डिटेल्स हमें मिली है. Okay, so we are having the very basic mathematical chapter, which is set. If any one of you know about the intersection and the Okay. The next thing is function. The function is going to be the very basic chapter of the mathematics. And I know that many of you simply failed in this chapter a lot. I know about this. Now you should know the values of the functions, whatever the increasement or the decreasement is working upon. Vector and matrices, the basic chapter, linear transformations, graph structure, tree, and these are your basic chapters actually in your mathematics, which you should be professional in these actually. Uh, okay, so let me tell you about my university. I'm basically from Wusong University. Okay, so this is my university, which is in Daejeon. That means in Donggu, Daejeon, Republic of Korea. So this is my university. Uh, I think so that this is the normal one, so not so much important for this one. Okay, let's move to the next one, which is the natural number and the decimals value. Okay. Okay, we are having the natural number. Of course, the basic concepts about the natural number, integers, rational numbers, irrational numbers, number systems, arithmetics, addition, and one more important thing, that computer doesn't understand multiplication and division. Computer only understands addition and subtraction. That means if you say that 2 into 4, that is 8. So 2, if you're going to add 2 4 times, that is also 8. So in actual, computer only understands addition and subtraction. So whenever you create any type of script or whatever the commands you are typing, the computer doesn't understand the multiplication sign or the division sign. It only understands plus and minus. So you should be having some professionalism in the formula learning, that is arithmetics, multiplication, addition, and blah, blah, blah. Distributive law, binomial functions, and formulas. So these are your basic ones. Now I would be giving you, for example, I would be giving you guys some assignment to do those, like something practicals, and give the answers in the WhatsApp group in a PDF format. Once again, you have to give me the answers in PDF format. Now you can take a screenshot. The questions will be based on the sum notation. The question will be based on the product notation. Okay, I'll just tell you so that you won't be having any problem. Okay. Now, very important, we are working on the software which is known as the Cisco Packet Tracer. Now, Cisco Packet Tracer is known to be a simulator program which works for the different sources of the networking devices as well as the security devices. It's just a simulating program. It's not like something working on the real life. It's just a simulating program which tells you about what is like something, a router, how a router actually works, what are the basic configurations of everything. As usual, you can see that this is a CPT, Cisco Packet Tracer, and we are having the networking devices section at the very last and the bottom one. In the networking devices, we are having the routers, switches, hubs, wireless devices, security, that means firewall, as well as the clouding computing system. So if we take a router, we are having 2811. Let's take like something, a router. I'm not able to watch everyone's video. Geeta, Satya, Surya, Jaya, Rahul, Rais. Okay, Rais is open. Okay, so we are having the basic router 0. And now what do you mean by a router? What is a router? Anyone know about what is a router? Regardless of the Wi-Fi routers and all. What is a router in actual? रईस आवाज नहीं आ रही आपकी. आप नया माइक खरीद के आइए. जी जया. Oh, Jaya is like something from south of India, so I think so I should speak with him in English. Yes, Jaya. What is a router? Akhil Nanda, Abhi. No one basically knows what is a router. Sudhanshu.
Router is provide us internet.
So we are having SIM card also for internet. So what is the difference between SIM card and router?
Access of LAN networks.
Access of LAN network, that means WLAN, WLAN.
No, sir, local area networks.
Okay, access on LAN network. The router simply gives us the access to LAN network, right?
More or less.
How can you say that?
Network device that forwards data packets.
Okay. Any other guesses? Galaxy J7 Prime. Kindly rename yourself to your original name. See, everyone is somehow correct in their own definition. Now, we are having two types of router. One is a router which acts like a Wi-Fi router, and one router is like something which is in the organizations. That means in the Cisco database or the Google database, the factories, or you can say the big warehouses where the data structures or the data models are kept upon, like the server room or the router room. So we are having two types of router. One is basically your Wi-Fi modem, we can say, and one is of the routers which are in the rack, like a server or a switches. Router is not like something which helps you to send the data packets. If you go behind the scenes, what is actually working behind the scenes, then you are simply going to find that a router is like something which is not having any type of security protocol. That means a router doesn't save any of your data. It's not a database. It's just working or giving you the connections actually of the internet, and that's it, right? A router is just giving you the internet connection, and that's it. Now, if something is giving you the internet connection, so that can be a common sense that the packets or the data is simply transmitting from there as well. So router is a networking device which basically gives the connection or the internet connection between the two or more than two multiple devices, which can be like router to router, router to PC, router to switch, or I think so router to laptop, and everything, the wireless networks as well. So router is just a networking device. It's not having any type of data which you can hack, any type of thing which you can find out. Now, many of you are going to say, no, we can use Wireshark and we can find the passwords by using the Wireshark and whatever the person is visiting any website. The answer is yes, you can. If you have watched the so-called YouTube, then of course you can. You can simply find the passwords by using the Wireshark. If anyone is going to the website, which is HTTP, and if on that website that person has uploaded or put or input their password actually on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, then you can simply, what can we say, decode that password or decrypt that password. But that is like something only for HTTP. What if you're having an HTTPS? Now, many of you are not having idea that we can simply gain the access of the passwords from the HTTPS also by creating a tunnel actually. A tunnel which is a clone of the S or the, what can we say, certificate of that tunnel. HTTPS is basically having a secure gate or a securing tunnel, and that tunnel is basically being having a certificate. So without that certificate, you can't get access to the informations which the person is sending or receiving. So there is like something, a method, we can create a clone of that certificate, and we can simply let the router know that, yes, I am the one who is accessing this website, and the router is going not to understand that what is like something this person coming from. So yes, you can basically get the password from that. And for making the clone, you must know the programming. Without programming, you can't. Okay, the basic concept is clear about the router. The router is known to be the very first networking devices. Now, router is different companies makes router. As usual, we are using CPT. So we are simply going to discuss only on the Cisco devices. And Cisco is known to be the very best company, actually, in my opinion. Cisco is known to be the very, very best company, maybe more best than Google also. So this router is basically of Cisco. So that's why Cisco 2811. So this is the name of the router. Now, many of you know about the CPT actually, and many of you don't. Now, this is the basic structure, the physical structure of the router. These are the port. That means by default, a router, suppose if I'm going to take my mouse pointer on this router, you can simply see that we are having F0 by 0. That means fast Ethernet 0 by 0, fast Ethernet 0 by 1. IP addresses are not set. MAC address is set by default. As usual, every networking device is having a MAC address being set. Let's take an example of an Android phone or iPhone. So these devices are also the networking devices because they are giving the network. So as usual, they are having the MAC addresses. So this is having the 2 port by default. Suppose if I want to add more port, if I want to increase the number of port, then I can simply turn off the machine. I can simply pick up an M4E and simply place it here and simply turn on the machine. If now I'm going to take my mouse pointer here, so you can see now we are having 4 extra ports, that E1 by 0, E1 by 1, 1 by 2, and 1 by 3. And the MAC addresses are being assigned by default by itself. Okay. So let's like something go to CLI. I'm just removing the extra ports. Going to the CLI is the very basic step. Now, this screen is known to be the very important screen whenever you gain access inside a router. That means if you are using a Wireshark or whatever the thing you are using, and you somehow gain access inside a router, then if that router is 2811 or of Cisco, then you can simply be getting this type of interfaces actually there in Linux. If somehow you hack a router or gain access into a router, then you are simply going to receive this type of screen. So the command basically are very important on this screen. Now, if we take about only the configuration commands of the router, so it's like something around 4,000 to 5,000 commands only in the router. Apart from servers, switches, hubs, firewalls, ASA, AKA, we are having tons and tons of commands there also. That means around in overall CPT, we are having 80,000 to 90,000 of commands, which is impossible to remember. So only for router, we are having 5,000 commands, maybe 4,000 or 5,000, I think so. Yeah. Okay, so the very first thing which you are receiving is, would you like to enter the initial configuration dialog box for the router? The answer is no. You don't want to work for the initial configuration. You want to work or configure something on this router. So you would be taking the N, that is no. I'm going to take a short form so you can understand that. Now, whenever you are receiving router and a greater than sign, this is known as to be the privilege mode. Okay, and the privilege mode is known to be the very first step going into the second step. Now we are having 3 steps. In the third step, you are having the full access of router. So you have to cross the first and second step. So this is the first step. Now you have to go to the second step. So going to the second step is very easy, making it enable. And as soon as I write the enable, you can see we are having router and hash. This is known to be the super privilege mode. So what is the difference between privilege and super privilege mode is that privilege mode is known to be the very basic step, where you can do nothing actually, where you can do nothing. It's just like something, a layer of the router. The second one is basically known as to be the second layer of the router. And here also you can do nothing. But yeah, here you can basically check out about the port number. But as usual, on the very first level, you can't check the port number, the IP addresses. But if you gain access to the second level, you can check the port number by using a search IP int BRI command. And this basically tells you about show IP interface brief. And you can see we are having 2 ports. One is this, and the IP addresses are unassigned. So somehow if you gain access to the second level, then you can simply find the private IP addresses of the device, that what is the actual IP devices, and you can simply do whatever the stuff you want. But as usual, sometimes the engineers, the computer engineers, what they do is that they simply put up a password after level 1. That means for going into the level 2, you have to type the password. So we would be working upon that later on, that how can we hack or how can we breach the password actually for the level 2. But as usual, you can find the IP addresses and much more thing in the level 2, but you can't do configuration by yourself in level 2. For doing configuration from yourself, you have to go to the level 3. I think so we can't. Okay, so for going into the level 3, we are having the command conft, which is known as to be configuration terminal actually. And as usual, the name it's telling you about the configuration terminal. It is going to give you the terminal in which you can configure whatever the thing you just want. So as soon as I hit enter, you can see I'm having inside the router, and this is known as to be the global mode. Global mode is like something where you can do all type of configurations. You can remove the IP and you can assign a new IP. You can create a clone IP of like someone. Suppose if a person is on another end of the earth and you know about his IP, you can clone that IP inside this router. So you can do a lot of things in global mode. Okay, so this is a global mode. Now let's see that what can we do here. We are going to check it out about do sh ipint bri. Remember that whatever the commands we were having in the level 1 and level 2 that are not having do, but inside global mode you have to write the do letter or the do one before your command. So the same one you are receiving here also. Till here, any doubt? Anyone is having any type of doubt? Nitish, I'm simply going to remove you because your camera is off from a long while. Nitish, okay. Yep. Anyone is having any type of doubt? If yes, then they can simply ask me right now. रोहित, राहुल, किसी को कोई भी
Sir.
डाउट है तो पूछ सकते हैं. हाँ सर बताएं.
Sir, you're going a little bit fast, sir. Could you please slow down, sir?
स्लो डाउन मतलब समझे नहीं. Yeah, okay. Actually, I didn't got that. What actually you wanted to say? Going fast is like something what?
No, sir. Could you re-explain the steps, sir?
Re-explain these steps. Okay. Okay, so as usual, this is a router. Now you guys know about the basic concept of router, that what is a router, what is the use of router. Once again, you can't hack the data inside a router. A router is not having a data actually, not the password or nothing. A router is just like something which is giving you the internet connection. And within that internet connection, if you are sending or receiving the passwords or some credentials or the information data, then that you can trace or track or hack down, but the data is not stored in router completely for a long time. It's just like something going and coming, going and coming. So it's not stored for a long time. So as usual, when you are having the access inside a router, in a Cisco router, I'm just talking about Cisco router right now, nothing the router of Oracle or Linux or whatever the stuff. I'm just talking about the Cisco router. So if you somehow gain access into a Cisco router, then you are having this type of GUI interface in front of you in your Linux terminal, right? So
Sir,
as
excuse me, sir.
Mhm.
Sir, Jay Kumar Chandra is waiting to accept him, sir. Will you accept him to join the class?
Actually, what are you saying? Just accepting the person who is in the waiting room right now.
Jay Kumar Chandra is waiting for your acceptance, sir.
He is not here. Okay, great. So as usual, Akilanda, till here you are having any type of doubt? Any type of thing you want to ask?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, great. So this is going to be the very basic GUI interface whenever you gain access inside a router. Now, for as usual, I've told you that router is having the very first level or the very first mode, which is known as to be the privilege mode. In the privilege mode, you can't do anything. You can do anything without one command, that is enable. I'm taking a short form of the commands, that is en, because as usual, I'm not going to write the whole command actually. So this is going to bring you to the level 2, or known as to be the level 2 layer of the router actually, of the Cisco router. And in this layer, or in this mode, which is known as to be the super privilege mode, you can do like something configuration, but you can find some of the personal details of that router. Like what is the IP address of the router by using the command do shipint. Oops, sorry, not do. shipintbri. So this is the basic command in the level 2 through which you can find the IP address of that router. Now this IP address is going to be private IP address. That means you can check it out and you can do some illegal stuff. Whatever the thing you just wanted, you can simply do a DDoS as well, because this is just a router. You can crash down a router by simply doing a DOS or a DDoS attack simply. It's not a server. It's not like something very important, right? So many times what engineer do is that they put a password in the level 2 before going to like something level 3. That means after level 1, you have to face or you have to type the password to go into level 2. So in this case, you can't like do this command and that's it. You have to type the password, right? So this is the important thing which I want to tell you. And the next thing is that, yeah, you can hack that password. That is not compulsory. You can breach or hack that level 2 password. You can. But as usual, we are simply going to work that later on. Now this is the level 2. Going into the level 3 is conft. That means now in the level 3, you are going to work with your own configurations. You want to remove the IP, you can remove the IP. You can replace the IP, you can replace the IP. Whatever the thing you want to do with this router, you can do in the third level. That means the global mode. So as soon as I hit enter, this is the global mode where I am right now. And here I can configure the router in my own manner actually. So the very first thing which I'm going to check is that do sh IP int bri, which is of course the same as the above command. But what I did is like something I have just placed a do actually. So by do is like something the necessity in the global mode that whatever the command you are writing, you have to type the do actually before that. Now you can see we are not having any IP addresses right now. So what if I want to assign an IP address on this router, my own IP address, random IP address. So I'm going to go into the fourth level, which is known as to be the interface mode. Now you can see right now, my interface is F0 by 0. You can take F0 by 1. That's totally up to you. INT F0 by 0, which is basically known as to be the fast Ethernet 0 by 0. So F0 by 0, as usual, short form. Hit enter. So now you can see I am inside the interface mode, right? That means here I can assign the IP on that particular port or on that particular link. So IP address 192.168.1. Let's take 12, and the subnet mask. If you guys don't know about the class IPs subnet mask, that's normal. I would tell you in the later on section, but yeah, this is a class C IP, and a class C IP is having a class C subnet mask. There are totally 5 classes of IP: class A, B, C, D, and E. Each class IP works in different organizations, like class E, which is the very last, works in supercomputers. That means in NASA or the very big organization which are using the class E IPs for the communication with the space technological things, right? So this is a class C IP, which is a public IP. That means normal public basically uses this IP. The phones, the laptops are having the class C IP. And what is a subnet mask? Just simply think, we are not going into the very complex structure. Subnet mask is like something which has to be with the IP address. If we are having an IP address, if there is no subnet mask, IP address can't exist. The subnet mask has to be with IP address, right? So every IP address is having a subnet mask. You should go into your settings. You can find the IP address of your phone, and below your IP address, there will be written a subnet mask also of that IP. So I hit enter, and we are having the command NSH. That means no shutdown. In computer language, no means yes and yes means no. That means gate, logical gate, on and off. If you remember logical gate, NOR gate, AND gate, NAND gate, and we are having other gates also. So NSH means no shutdown, and this is simply going to assign the IP on F0 by 0. So if I hit enter, you can see I'm having a message, change state to up. Now this is a very basic one. Let us just take a wire and let's create an establishment between these two routers. So right now you can see it is written F0 by 0, and this is also F0 by 0. So the ports are right now red. So let's go into the router one right now, and the same commands we are going to work here also. Enable conft intf 0 by 0 IP address. 192.168.1.21, subnet mask, NSH. So as soon as I just configure these commands on both the routers, you can see that the ports are being converted into green. That means the network is running on these port numbers or on these both routers and the connection is established. So how can you say by only green color we can say no? We can check. Right now I'm on router 1. I'm going to check the IP of the routers. So do ping 192.160.1.12. Now this IP is basically of router 0. So if I'm going to hit enter, now let's see. Once again, so you can see that the success rate is 100%. Now the same you can do with the router 0 to router 1. Do ping 192.168.1.21 and 21 is the IP of the router 1. So yeah, here is the 100% success rate between these both routers. So this is a very general command configuration of assigning the IP and creating an establishment between the routers. Now, if I'm going to say do sh IP int bri, so you can see that the protocol is up right now for the port number F0 and it is having the IP this, the status is up. Now, this is the very basic step. Now, what I wanted to tell you about the core networking is that we are having lots and lots of configuration commands more, but today actually, as usual, we can't do that. What actually I'm going to tell you is this was a pretty much easy example. Oh, this is very, very much. Okay, let's try if we can configure this one. We are simply going to increase the port number. We are taking 6 port on these routers so that we can configure them very easily. And I'm not going to configure these things. You guys are going to configure these things, every one of you. And don't expect from the other one. Okay, so we are having our port increasement done. And right now, this is now basically this is like something I want all the routers being connected, giving the connections with each other. That means I want all the red ports turned into green. Now this is basically your homework. If you want to take a screenshot, you can take a screenshot and you can send the answer or yeah, the answer in the WhatsApp group. Now I want, like as usual, I have tell you about the basic concept of these two routers. How can you configure the IP on every port? Now here you can see you are having the another port that is F0 by 1. So you have to go into int F0 by 1 IP address assign. int F0 by 0 of router 2 IP address assign. int E1 by 0 because it's Ethernet. So we will be taking E1 by 0 and IP assign F0 by 1. Basic concept, easy one. I'm not saying you have to ping the router 0 with router 11 because it can't without a protocol. But I'm just saying to convert all these red connections into green connections or red dot into green dots actually. Till here, any one of you is having any type of doubt, then you can simply let me know. Otherwise, you can leave. Jaya is okay. If any one of you is having any doubt, then yeah, sure, you can ask me. Otherwise, you can simply leave the session. And the next session is going to be taking place, I think so, maybe tomorrow. I would be trying to take tomorrow because after that, we are also having classes from the morning to night. So we are not able to be so much free. We get around Friday, maybe some time to get free.
Hello, sir.
हाँ कौन है ये ध्यानेश्वर
Sir, how can we do it? When how can we do it? Is written or how can do it?
what
Where?
Dhaneshwar, I'm not from south of India, sorry. Is anyone from south of India who can understand the things of Dhaneshwar? Dhaneshwar, you are from where?
Sir, Maharashtra.
Maharashtra. Oh, anyone from Maharashtra, Mumbai, from Bollywood?
Yes, bro, he's saying that yes, you gave the homework.
Uh-huh.
What we have to do it means just to have to written on the paper.
Yep. You just need to create a connection establishment between all the routers. I'm not saying you just need to assign the IPs on all the routers, and you just need to create the red link into the green link, and that's it. I'm not saying to ping the IP addresses. I'm just saying to assign the IP addresses on each interface, and that's it. Just leave that assignment as it is. Clear, Dhaneshwar?
Are these all routers are manually present?
I didn't get it, Geeta.
Sir, you have imported so many routers on the screen now, sir. Are these routers are manually present? Manually there?
Yeah. Now, as usual, I know that many of you might be having some doubts that what is the use of actually a simulator in our real life? We are having around 1 minute left upon. Suppose if I rename this router to India and rename this router to China and rename this router to Turkey, Kazakhstan, you can take Pakistan also, Pak, Kazakh. That means Kazakh and lots of other things, American, blah, blah. Wow, Pradeep Kumar is coming right now. Okay, so this is actually happening behind the scenes. The data is transferring. You don't know that where actually the server is. We are just working on the very first step. I hadn't told you about the server. There can be a possibility that after 5 routers, we are having the server. That means your data is going from different countries and then you are receiving your request, right? If any one of you is having any type of other questions, then you can simply join once again on the same ID. I'm here for the more 10 minutes.